for an opera orientation. Thank you all for coming. And thank you for a fairly full cast of The Vampire showing up. It's wonderful. Before we get going, I want to, Eileen and Betsy, are you around?
Probably in the kitchen.
Well, they were very much wanting to thank you all for coming as well. The Women's Guild puts this event on, and Eileen and Betsy do all the cooking to make this all function happen. So we're very grateful to them. Also, I want to thank the opera staff. Opera staff, we have John Fink here. John. Nancy Watts for marketing. Jenny Winstrup for development. Tina Klein, business manager. And Casey, who just joined us as our director of production. Thank you all. They were the ones out there. Now we have Eileen and Betsy here. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to introduce you to my cohorts here. We have Pat Merrill and Merrill Gurin. They are our committee members, and we are the preferred darling Caprito caterers. The famous Women Guild caterers. And we invite you to enjoy some little refreshments, kind of theme-oriented. We have some surprises, but it's all related. So we hope you enjoy. That's it, Dolly, for an idea.
And now we're going to introduce the stars. I'm going to ask the stars each tell us who you are in real life, and then who you are on stage. And with you, Wilson.
All right, okay. My name is Marjorie Owens, and in real life, I'm an opera singer. Sometimes, yes. I live in Chicago and Germany. Let's see, opera background. I did the Houston Grand Opera Young Artist Program. I did the Chicago Lyric program, and I've been bouncing around ever since. I am now festing. I'm part of the ensemble in Dresden, Germany, at the Semper Oper, and that is where I head back to next to go sing some Wagner.
Well, let me ask you a quick question now. Someone in Dresden, how does Robert find out about you?
Well, they were talking to my manager with Columbia artists, and they were discussing, this opera, and I'm sure Michael was like, well, I have this fabulous soprano, all these vampires, so here I am, and New Orleans.
Now, tell us about your character.
I portray the role of Malvina. I am the only soprano who gets out alive. I survived this opera, which is refreshing. I am 18 years old, obviously. And this opera, this is taking place when I come into it. This is taking place on my birthday, 19th birthday, and I would love to marry Edgar Aubrey right here. And however, my father has other plans for me. And
don't look at me that way.
He's betrothed me to the vampire. And I am being forced to marry him.
But he doesn't know he's a vampire.
No, nobody knows he's the, well, almost nobody knows he's the vampire yet.
Okay, okay. Okay. Well, now, you live in this house, basically, right?
Big Daddy Davino.
That's
in the garden.
Yes.
Yes.
You looking at me?
I'm looking at you. Yes. And because this production, which is an amazing idea, is set in New Orleans. And the Davino home is in the Garden District and is very similar to this. I mean, the production team came here taking photos, and so it's supposed to be very similar, right? Okay.
I am Corey Biggs, and I'm the romantic tenor in the opera. In real life, I'm not the romantic tenor. I'm from Iowa originally, and I went to school in Iowa and in Boston, and I've done a lot of the American Young Artist programs, and now I work a lot in Europe and the United States singing big German operas, and it's fun. And in the opera, I'm playing Edgar Aubrey, which is, in our updated setting, I'm a student at Tulane. So I'm very fancy. And I am the only person in the opera that knows that Nicholas's character is a vampire. And when I find out that he is betrothed to the lady that I'm having my heart set on, I'm very scared and I don't know what to do, but I'm sworn to secrecy, so I can't say anything. But in the end, everything ends happy.
How do you know he's a vampire?
Because he is hurt in the beginning of the opera, and I come and save him by pulling him into the moonlight.
And that seems good.
Yes. Because most people don't get saved by being pulled into the moonlight, so.
Okay. Casey?
I'm Casey Candabat. I grew up just around the corner. I'm the only local, actually, in the principal cast. My character is George. The vampire sitting next to me likes all these wonderful brides, and my bride in the opera is one of the ones he tries to steal, and successfully does so. So I end up also being a not romantic tenor in the show.
Okay. Nicholas? Do you notice that the garlic is right there? The garlic is there to protect the audience, okay?
I'm Nicholas Pallison. I am the vampire, and I also play one on TV. I am originally from Southern California, and I now live in the Washington, D.C. area, outside of Northern Virginia. And I love New Orleans. This is such a beautiful town. Now, you know, I haven't gotten used to the humidity yet. But,
That's right, neither.
but, you know.
It's all right, you're dead.
But I love it. I just love how nice everyone is. I love what a beautiful town it is. And I don't know if I'm going to fit in my costume by opening night because it's kind of hard to, you know, say no to beignets. I mean, my gosh, right? And I've done lots of cool things as a singer. And I play Lord Ruthven, the vampire, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, you know, doing this role. Wait till you come see it. It's pretty exciting. Not the typical, you know, portrayal of a vampire. I think you get to see a little bit the softer side of a vampire, softer side of Sears, you know. So it's fun. It's a really cool opera. A lot of fun to sing and fun production. So.
Now, are you the only one that has sung this?
I'm not the only one that sung this before.
You were there with it too. You were in the same production, right?
Yeah.
At Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, in March we did this at Carnegie Hall in a concert version. So I was telling the story last night to the people who were at the party here that you know, I did this opera and I thought, gosh, this is such a cool piece. You know, it's so fun to sing. It feels like it's really well written for my voice, and you know, what a bummer that I have to go through all this work of learning this opera, and I'm only going to get one chance to do it. You know, and afterwards I was like, man, actually I said a lot more words than that. But you know, gosh, I wish I could do this again. And lo and behold, on 4 days later, after our concert, my manager, who's the same manager that Marjorie has, calls me and says, guess what? It wasn't all for one night. You get to do it again. And so I was like, hot damn, I'm there.
And what's great about it is there's some wonderful clips of you on YouTube, and you're singing amazingly on it.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
All that agent.
That's it. Steven.
So in deference to our friends who are seated over here,
Oh, good, yeah.
I'm going to stand up if that's all right. My wife tells me I think better sitting down, but anyway. Pleasure to be here in New Orleans. Nolans. I have to work on that. I started something.
I'm trying to work on the accents. We're working on it.
After 39 years of singing professionally, I made it to the big time. But it's a pleasure to be here. It's a wonderful city. Bought a bicycle, and so I've been riding around. It's easier to get there. It's a little faster than the streetcar, and I get a chance to look at all the gorgeous mansions coming down to here today. So I don't know. My career's taken me everywhere. I've sung for 7 years at the Metropolitan Opera in Bayreuth, La Scala, Paris, Berlin, all over the world, and it's been great to get to take my family with me. My wife and 3 teenage children will be down here for the performances, so they'll get a taste of New Orleans as well, which is great. I play the character Davenant, that's his last name, Sir Humphrey Davenant, and he is the host. So for the 2 big finales that you see, they take place either in my home, which is here, which Todd alluded earlier today, and that's why last night at the party I invited everyone to the party. If you were here last night, I sang a note. I won't repeat that today. My colleagues have never let me forget that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the opera. We have certainly had fun doing it. So pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I'll follow Stephen's good example. We actually met at the San Francisco Opera in 1978. It was my very first job working for a big company. Maybe yours too.
I was an apprentice there.
Right. My name is Matthew Laga. It was delightful to be back in New Orleans. I did Barbara Seville here last year and I believe Lalo the year before. So it's always great to be here. I also grew up in Iowa and went to school in Iowa and Boston, so I'm not sure what that means. This opera is a wonderful challenge. First, it's fun to do an opera that nobody's really done before. They have sung it, but they haven't done it on their feet as characters. Our concept is even more fun to play with. All of these things I realize I'm saying in rehearsal that in all the years I've been working in opera, I've never said in rehearsal before or asked anybody to do before. Now, can you tear her throat out? You think you could bite her there? You think you could bite her a little more gently? And so on and so on. It just lends itself to a fun atmosphere. It lends itself to lots of jokes. And the whole thing is ever so slightly tongue-in-cheek. But as Nicholas may tell you, being a vampire can really suck.
Oh, boy.
I don't know
Follow
if I
that,
can follow that, but my name's Jennifer Tiller. I am very happy to be here as well. I love it here. I love everything I've seen so far with the food and the people and the things. I live in New York, in Manhattan. I used to be a mezzo. I sang a lot of pants rolls and Suzukis and things like that, and about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago I switched to soprano and decided that actually wasn't necessarily the best thing for me to do, and I kind of do both now. I'm right in the middle, and there are plenty of roles on either side that I could do. I like to, this role is perfect the way it lies for me. So, but in the opera, my character's name is Emmy Perth, and I'm married to that handsome gentleman there.
But she leaves me.
We've been married, in this setting, we've been married, I don't know, about 6 hours or so, something like that-ish. And I see that handsome gentleman come in, and I fall for him. And so I don't escape him. And you'll see how it unfolds in the production, but we're in the middle still of getting all the details worked out. But I think you're going to enjoy how everything unfolds. So thank you for having me here. I'm really enjoying everything about it. Thanks a lot.
And finally, Robin.
Well, I don't know precisely what to say, because my view of the piece is an overview, and that is first to set it with some degree of perspective for you. Appreciate that one of the greatest influences on it was Mozart's Don Giovanni. Now, consider that this opera is 180 years old. It premiered in 1828. And so both looking backwards at a couple of things, the demonic element of Mozart's Don Giovanni, which he incorporates almost bodily, and also the character of Emmy, you will recognize immediately as the character Zerlina from Don Giovanni, who, remember, also gets seduced on her wedding day because she encounters this strikingly handsome, seductive nobleman. But a fun bit of musicology is that Wagner, as a young conductor, performed this piece many times. And the works that were seminal, if you will, for German romantic opera with its subject matter and its musical language were those of Carl Maria von Weber, in particular, the Freischütz. And then Wagner, who had certainly a cosmic genius in comparison to someone like Marschner, who was a wonderful composer, as you will see. I think you will be delighted with the music of this opera. But someone that could take music drama to a completely different universal level, as Wagner did, was so influenced by this opera that the romanza that Emmy sings, in which, as she's enjoying her wedding reception, and the subject of the vampire comes up, and she says, "I have a story to tell you that my mother told me," and it becomes the prototype of Sinta's ballad in The Flying Dutchman. So you can see this progression of musical influences, theatrical influences, the element of dramatic writing. The origins of this subject were, vampires have been discussed, or people that never die, or supernatural and phantasmagoric forces have been addressed by man throughout all of our existence and expressed in one way or another. The fun story about the vampire was that Lord Byron, famous British poet, was vacationing with Percy Bysshe Shelley, another famous British poet, and his wife Mary Shelley, who wrote the famous novel Frankenstein. And just to amuse themselves, they said, let's write some ghost stories. And so Byron wrote this sketch of the vampire, and the doctor that was there traveling with him, John Polidori, kept that, expanded it a little bit, and published it under Byron's name as The Vampire. And so then that became a play, and then the play was turned into a libretto, and then one of the leading composers of his generation, Heinrich Marschner, set it, and it premiered in Leipzig in 1828. And it was quite the sensation, not just because of the interesting subject matter, but also because of the musical qualities. And it held the stage as really a very prominent operatic offering for about 60 or 70 years. And then we enter the era of Bram Stoker, and his Dracula was published in 1879. So the modern world views the subject of vampires more through Bram Stoker's work and the specific character of Dracula, who was, after all, a historical character, Vlad Dracula, who was the leader of Romania and protecting it from the invasions of other countries like the Turks and people like that, known for a kind of bloody reign. And so all of these things come together with our perception of vampires. People have asked me why we are doing an opera about vampires, and I answer simply by saying, because I don't know any about zombies. But the truth is that this is part of now popular culture. We have at least two prominent television series. New Orleanians know the work of Anne Rice. Most of us know Anne Rice, and so you've read the books, you've seen the movies based upon these, and you know that this is a fun, popular entertainment that is now associated with New Orleans. I love to tell this very true anecdote. Since you are all season subscribers, then you know that for large-scale choral works, we invite the New Orleans Vocal Arts Ensemble to join us, NOVA. So one day, just to check a scheduling conflict, I Googled NOVA, and what came up was the New Orleans Vampire Association. And I was sad that I had missed the meet and greet brunch. But there is, in fact, an active vampire association in New Orleans, and there's also one in Atlanta, by the way, if you're traveling. But the truth is that while some people, particularly young, goth-oriented youth culture, enjoy this kind of subject matter, as Matthew said, it is very much tongue-in-cheek. As we treat it, it's difficult to take the subject of vampires seriously, but you can certainly take the melodrama associated with Sturm und Drang, which is a characteristic of a German writing style of melodrama from the first half of the century. And it's fun. It's expertly crafted, has quite beautiful music, and a variety of colors and experiences portrayed on the stage. Simply put, the vampire wants another year on Earth. And so he goes to the vampire master and says, what must I do to achieve one more year among the living before being drawn down to the fires of hell? And the vampire master says, you must bring us 3 victims within 24 hours. And they should be brides, which is why the sequence of weddings that are portrayed in this. And so then the plot unfolds, with the clock ticking rather loudly by the end of the opera. And I won't ruin it for you, because I want you to enjoy the fun of this wonderful, colorful plot. But I also don't want to dominate this conversation, so please ask some questions of these artists.
If you don't know already, if you go to our website, you all are coming to see this production. But there's a video that I did with Robert where we talk about the show. Also, many of you wouldn't have gotten this because you're already subscribers, but we prepared a CD about each of the 4 operas for the upcoming season that we sent to those recalcitrant subscribers to get them to subscribe. All of that is also online. So please feel free to go to our website. It's very easy to get to, and you can find out a little bit more, and you can forward this to your friends. Now, I want to add something. Do you know why vampires are in New Orleans? Because they came through ships. Before New York was the center of the U.S., New Orleans was where everybody came here because of the mouth of the Mississippi. If you read Bram Stoker's Dracula, you'll find out that he comes here and his casket in dirt from his homeland under the bottom of in the bowels of the ship to New Orleans. And from New Orleans, you can go everywhere. And that is why New Orleans historically has been the root of vampire activity in America. Who knew?
FYI, on Ovation, interviewed the vampire, and Rice has been playing for 2 weeks, and I don't know whether it was a coincidence because of the opera or what, but it's been hysterical.
I think that Anne Rice Anne Rice is very much following our production
Oh, I'll
of the
bet.
Vampire. I
I'll
think
bet.
so. Very much.
Well, and I might add that WWNO will be Tuesday night broadcasting the entire opera as their evening at opera.
Oh, really?
So if you want a chance, I mean, we have sound bites and we have promotional materials that makes you familiar with the musical language. But if you really want to hear the entire piece, then do so. And it should whet your appetite, I think, for seeing how it is being very wonderfully staged by Matthew, using so many local references, locales, and interesting New Orleans things that will tie it all together for us in a fun way, as well as having some degree of historical accuracy, at least being reinforced by the points that Todd is making in your contributions.
I want to start, and not in terrible detail, but kind of start from the beginning and without giving away any of the secrets, okay? No spoilers. Kind of go from beginning to end. As your character comes up, tell us the story of the vampire. We have vampire masks.
They almost have in a way.
Well, Robert told all my story, so
Yeah.
I'm good.
Go have a Bloody Mary.
And you did a good job. You did a
What
good
Robert
job.
didn't talk about is that in your big aria, your big Shayna, you tell us a lot about some of the sadder parts of being a vampire. It's not all fun and blood.
Yeah. I thought we were going in order of the story, but that's an act 2.
That is a remake.
Well, Robert basically told act 1 for me, so you know. But yeah, no, I think that the great scene in act 2 is probably one of the. Oh yeah.
These people down here.
Hi everyone.
Be careful how he looks at you.
Yeah. You know, here.
Is that why there's garlic on the table for
It's a
him?
little crampy down here. Yeah, you know, I think that the great scene in Act 2, it's actually called the great scene, is a scene that I'm singing with Aubrey, and you know, and he's saying, you know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to break the oath. You know, you can't get away with this. You know, he wants to marry Malvina, and you know, and he's talking to me about my life and my fate as a vampire, and I say, well, you know, you think that I love this life? You think that I chose this life? You know, well, let me tell you what. And he goes into this long narrative, saying, you know, this is a fate that I was condemned to. This was not my choice. And, you know, and kind of talking about the torment that he went through. That's why I was saying, you know, earlier when I was talking about the softer side of Sears, you know, you really, one of the reasons that this role is so attractive to me is because it's not the stereotypical, you know, one-dimensional kind of vampire. I mean, you know, there's certainly moments of that, but you see someone who is really conflicted. And you know, if you look at my career and you look at the roles that I do, I love dark, complex, conflicted characters. I do not like the one-dimensional, easy-to-figure-out people. I love playing the messed up folks. You know, typecasting. But you know, but you know, you really get to see that there's another side to him, and you get to see that he's, you know, he's driven by this lust for blood, but that he even still feels conflicted about it. And what becomes very touching is that he tells basically the story of soon after he was turned into a vampire, seeing his family, and in particular seeing his daughter. And you know, and I always get really emotional when I get to that part. You know, sometimes it's hard for me to keep back from crying. But you know, seeing his daughter, his young daughter, looking up at him, and she knows what's happened to him, and she probably knows what's going to happen to her. And she says, "Daddy, I'm going to pray for you in heaven." and how conflicted he is, that he sees his daughter and he knows it's his daughter. Maybe the transformation hasn't completely, fully taken place, but he sees his daughter and he knows who she is, but he's just overcome by this lust for blood, and he kills her. And then he goes for the rest of his life just living with that, the torment of what he did to his own loved ones. So so he tells Aubrey, yeah, you think this is great? You think I want this? Go ahead and break your oath and see what's going to happen to you. And so I think it's a really, really powerful moment and a chance to show that it's not just some, thoughtless, mindless creature wandering, looking for hot women. But someone who has a little bit of a soul and is just driven by these, this cursed desire for blood. So there you go.
That's fantastic.
That's everything Robert didn't talk about, so I'm good now.
All of you now.
Am I? Oh yeah, I'm a baritone.
We're trying to figure out who sings how.
Well, I sing somewhat well. Baritone. Yeah.
It's set in New Orleans, but is it in the 19th century or is it current?
No, that's what we're going next. This is set in modern day.
Oh.
And I want to talk with Matthew and with the singers. What complications came up because of that, with setting it modern?
Well, the piece was originally set in 19th century Scotland, so I don't know why. But, yeah, 18th century Scotland. So yes, we set it here because of the vampire connection with New Orleans. Because in so doing we celebrate the city. There really aren't any complications. We tweak things, obviously, we're speaking on a cell phone instead of, who knows what.
Well, the dialogue.
Yeah, the dialogue reflects what we hope is an approximation of modern New Orleans.
And we should say that it is sung in German.
It's sung in German, but the dialogues are all in English.
Exactly.
And we're trying to be careful, and certainly the audience will be the judge of that, to assign, because each of the three brides, the one who's not here because she died way back in the first scene and she's been home for the last week, is the lowest class.
She will be back for the opera.
Well, I hope. Is the lowest class, and we've assigned her one kind of an accent. And Emmy is sort of middle class, and we've assigned her another kind of accent, and Malvina is upper class, lives in the Garden District, and there's a slightly different accent for that. So we're trying to be as accurate as we can.
What about costumes?
Costumes will be what people would wear. Our chorus, because the chorus is involved with each of these social classes, so the chorus first appears, well, we won't tell you how they first appear, but the first time we get involved with them, they are Yante's people, the first bride. They are looking for her, so, in white beaters and blue jeans and so on.
Okay.
The middle class wedding of Emmy, our costumer chose the bridesmaids' dresses, for example, and I asked, why did you pick that one? He said, because it was the ugliest one I could find. And the men are in bad rented tuxedos. I mean, it's just lavender and pink. So we're trying to really create these worlds which are very, very separate. And Malvina's upper class wedding is very similar to the wedding here. That is, the men are in their tropical suits, so there's seersucker. Ladies at a garden party are wearing floral dresses and hats. So our customer is trying to pull this all together in a way that doesn't look necessarily as if people brought stuff from home, that looks as if it really goes together, but also reflects the tradition of what people wear in the city of New Orleans.
So for the singers who have done it before, do you find it changes the way you do the role that it's set here in modern days from before? And if so, how?
Yes, I did. I found it it's definitely different. When we did it before, it was only concert version, so it's not like we even had the opportunity to fully explore the characters in you know, really like fleshing them out, but fleshing. But this, yeah, it is different than what I had in my mind from before in doing the research, like Robert was saying about the whole story from that Holy Dory had adapted, and in my mind, I sort of had it that my character was going to be much different than we are actually doing it now. It's a challenge, but it's certainly not something that I wasn't open to or something that I think is a hindrance. So it's just, I mean, and the thing is, every time you do an opera, even if you've done the same Verdi or the same Mozart 6 different times, it's always going to be a little bit different anyway, and you have to adjust that. But I think this is going to work well, and I think I'm welcoming it.
I think in my case, it's not too big of an adjustment, because as the vampire and as someone who's kind of immortal, timeless, you know, I'm kind of still in that 18th century kind of frame of mind, you know, while everyone else is in modern day New Orleans. And so my talk, my speech, I don't have the local New Orleans accent when I talk. When I'm interacting with people, it's almost as if, you know, with that kind of Don Giovanni kind of Count Almaviva kind of period, kind of mannerism, which is part of what attracts the women, I think, to me, is that class and that difference of kind of mannerism. So I would say that the challenge for me is then not getting sucked into what everyone else is doing on stage, because everyone else is playing a totally different, you know, mannerism, accent, you know, body language, everything, and playing against that, not getting caught up in becoming the local guy is a challenge.
Wow.
Did it ever explain what the original curse was that made you a vampire?
No, I mean it's not explained in the opera how I became a vampire. The only curse that's ever talked about is the curse that will come on Aubrey if he reveals my identity as a vampire. But it doesn't talk about how I became a vampire. It just talks about kind of that period shortly after becoming a vampire.
As with any opera, there are little plot twists that sometimes require us to pour a little bit of salt on it, you know, take a few grains. For example, Aubrey presumably had his life saved by Ribbon at some point and swore to do anything Ribbon asked him to do, even not telling everybody that Ribbon is a vampire and is about to devour his bride. Can't tell him that. It's not sufficiently explained why Davino is so adamant about marrying Malvina to the vampire. It's really not discussed. In the original libretto, the implication is that there's some sort of political tie, almost like Lucia, and maybe that's why it's set in Scotland. We're portraying it as more of a business relationship where Davino is beholden to Ribbon and will probably go bankrupt without Ribbon's continued investment in, I believe it's the hospital complex.
I would comment about this. The Scottish setting of the original, while it seems odd in a German romantic opera, would not have seemed odd at all in the British Isles for a novella that was published under the name of Lord Byron. You see, that would have been almost local lore. It's just that when it was picked up and transported in through the dramatic versions of it, then it seems a little quaint to have it with its own social stratification. But as Matthew just said, I think you have to accept that Aubrey had his life saved, and so therefore he has sworn a sacred oath, and the vampire is able to turn it back on him. Nicholas, why do you think that Riven Marsden wants one more year?
If it's such a torment, that was my question, it's such a torment to be a vampire, why would you want another year?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, I think that, I think he's searching for some way, you know, hoping that there's some way to redeem himself, in a sense. You know, and Robert was just mentioning that in the great scene, you know, he talks about how he, you know, he's in hell, and compared to everybody else in hell, he's an angel. You know, compared to what everyone else has done who's joined with him in hell. And so, you know, I think he realizes that if he dies, that he's probably going to endure a much worse fate, much more damnation and torment in hell, being around all of these, you know, demons and other people that are just going to, you know, gnaw and gnash and thrash at him. You know, he thinks he's probably better off on earth, even though he's suffering. But, you know, so I think it's, you know, I think he's looking for a little bit of redemption, trying to find some way to maybe the spell be broken. Yeah.
Let me ask a question. Some of the comments we've received was concern from audience people that this will be a bloodbath on stage and like made for HBO only. I mean, is this exactly, or is this? I mean, obviously this is a great story, but I mean, will this be a bloodbath? Will this be offensive in any way?
There will be blood.
There will be blood. I mean, there's
Yeah.
and our makeup artists are responsible for the blood, and I believe he uses a mixture of, well, lots of laundry soap, so it will come easily out of costumes. Just not less dye than you would think, mostly red, a little bit of blue, so it doesn't look like cherry juice. And then he puts a little bit of K-Ro syrup in there, so that it gives it a little bit of texture. I've worked with makeup artists who put a little peanut butter in there too, because it gives it that sort of gummy quality. But the fact is, no, I don't think we're going to be gratuitously bleeding. I mean, there is a certain amount of damage that occurs when you get your neck bitten. That just happens. I mean, we all know that. But no, it's not going to be offensive.
I don't think it's going to be much of the sake of having blood. No, I think it's very much.
It's a part of the story.
And I don't think it's ever going to cross to the offensive part. I mean, I don't think anyone's
This
sensibilities will be bothered.
is not a horror movie, though.
No.
No, this is not a horror movie.
Well, look how offensive Lucia is. I mean, look at the blood.
Well, if you
Exactly.
look at some of these plots, look at Trovatore.
Right, yeah.
We're not burning any babies.
Pretty mean.
Yeah.
I want to put the questions out to the audience. What kind of questions do you have?
Well, I know you don't want to reveal the end of the opera, but I presume the vampire dies in the end?
Oh,
I haven't even told the cast that.
Google it.
On Friday, October the 11th, you can find out.
I wanted to ask, how do you react when your agent or whoever approaches you with a proposition to take on a new role from a relatively obscure work? And that it's very probable that you're only going to have one or two performances take the longest. I mean, it's are you doing this just from the love of opera? Does it seem like a pragmatic move in your career? I'd like to hear your reactions to being approached with such a thing like that.
I love Norland.
You gotta pay the rest. You gotta pay the rest. And that was,
It's okay.
Well, I mean, the truth is, this show is done much more often in Europe. So if you have a European career, doing this and having this under your belt helps you in career correct?
I also think because vampires are now so
Yeah.
vogue,
Yeah.
that it's going to have a renaissance. You know,
You're hoping that
I
this
really
album
think
might
this.
have a bit of a,
I think so. I mean, and I think all of you will find when you're there that it's quite enjoyable, and hopefully more and more people will start producing it because of that.
I
Particularly
understand
this
that the Vienna
production.
Staatsopera is doing.
Yeah, next season they're doing it.
I mean,
Vienna
I see this
Staatsoper is
production
copying New
going
Orleans
beyond.
opera.
Go ahead.
Yeah, historically, you usually use silence to build that suspense of the vampire and that tension. How are you building that with the music in this particular piece?
Actually, the construction of the piece is pretty effective. I mean, Marshner has written effective melodrama. You know, the seduction scenes of the victims are truly love duets of a sort. And then suddenly, as the victim is drawn into the dark corner, so to speak, what would in any other opera just be a logical end to a love duet ends up with a victim. And so it's not as if we have to have special effects to achieve that. Now, the staging can be more suggestive or less suggestive, of course, but musically, I think the melodrama itself is pretty expertly crafted.
There's a question in the back by the piano.
Yeah, we've mainly been exposed to the Bram Stoker, Anne Rice type of vampires here. I'm not clear as to whether his victims are inducted into this vampire Pickwick Club or whatever, or whether they are gone once they are killed. The other part is, have you considered having a blood drive right before?
I think it's, guys, it is the Wikipedia page. There's a list about this long of all the different vampires that have appeared in literature and movies starting hundreds of years ago, and then a list of the rules that each of these vampires must follow. And the fact is, there are very many different rules. Most of them cannot appear in the daytime, but some of them can. Some have got long fingernails and some don't. Some have pale skin and some of them don't. Normally the rule is, if you just have your blood sucked, you die. In order to become a vampire, you must ingest the blood of the vampire. That's a little more of a ceremony. And then you die and are reborn as a vampire.
So in this one, victims are simply victims.
The victims are simply victims.
Are there any vampires created in this show? Are there any new vampires made?
I'm not sure.
What do you know?
But also to answer your question, the production team doesn't know this, but we've all decided amongst ourselves. You're asking what happens to the victims. The first victim gets offed pretty early in the opera. We've decided that after she's off, she's going to go out and buy drinks for everybody. So that we have the drinks ready for after the show.
Barrage of go
Bloody Mary.
Yeah. So that's the club she's doing. So.
Thank you.
My question is, have you ever read anything about the vampire Lestat?
Oh, yes.
I mean, have you read it?
So my question for you is, how many of you have friends who have not yet bought their tickets to see Vampire?
Oh, wow.
You now know all the answers. This is a really great German classical opera. There's blood, not too much, great drama, great fun, and New Orleans. Why would one not want to come see this show? And the cast is fantastic.
And really ridiculous cast. I have to tell you, this cast is ridiculously talented. It's so much better than the one in March. But these are, it's just, such amazing artists. Such amazing artists who, you know, and this opera is new to almost everybody here. And, you know, you would never know. With all of the information that they bring as artists into the rehearsals, and they sing the living bleep out of the score, you know, I mean, this is a really, Robert just like struck gold with this cast. I mean,
Not at my paycheck, he didn't.
They're awesome.
Okay,
Yes, as in other operas, there's so many melodies that we usually opera sing. Are there any melodies that we should listen for that we will?
We'll whistle on the way home.
You know, if you go to our website, we have a bunch of the big arias on the website. It is beautiful music. It's incredible music.
Yeah, the tenor Aubrey's aria really is gorgeous. I mean, Wagner loved this opera. I think Robert talked about that. And Wagner loved it so much that his brother sang Aubrey a lot. And Wagner actually rewrote the tenor aria a little bit to give it a little more oomph. So the fact that Wagner conducted this so much and even wanted to play around in the score just to be around it shows you that in its day it really was top of the totem pole. And I think his stuff, and actually some of the chorus things, the chorus music, you know, I thought going into this that it was all going to be ghoulish, like those old Halloween records that you'd play. I was like, oh, what am I getting? And it's not. It's Giovanni mixed with Freischütz in this strange New Orleanian baby mixed with king cake and hurricanes. It's very nice. It really is.
If you do though, if you listen through the score, the composer does use some material. He does have themes. For example, there's Malvina's big redemption theme, which is "I will trust in the Lord and everything will be all right." You had to do that in 1828 in Germany. Had to end that way. There are a couple of themes that Rivens, the very first theme that you hear in the overture, is heard really when he's being drawn towards a victim. So Marschner really does construct the score around recognizable themes. If you can pick those up early on, it will be helpful.
And I find the drinking songs very singable. I mean, if you listen to it once, I think you could probably hum it.
Yeah, my test of a good melody is, does it sound good in the shower? And there are 3 or 4 of these that work really well.
I want to thank all the artists, everyone. As I said, there is a plethora of information on our website. And you now know more than probably anybody other than the cast about the show. And so introduce your friends to it. Forward the emails to them. Let them know about the website and answer their questions. We put together a wonderful CD introducing people to the season. All of the tracks for each of the individual 4 operas is also available online as YouTube videos that you can send to your friends as well. And this is a really rare opportunity to see a great piece of theater that I would hate for people to miss. And I think it's going to be fantastic, and thank you all again.